So while reading the lovely comic book series that is Marvel by the great Bill Jemas, I stumbled upon a little mini publishing company named Epic Comics, which was made for people who wanted to get their story out there, but didn't really have the influence or the popularity to get people's eyes on it. And while scrolling through the comics that were published under Epic Comics, I stumbled across Captain Confederacy, which at first glance it looks crazy. It's obviously a counterpart to our golden boy Steve Rogers, and I feel like anyone who looks at this for the first time will immediately think that he's just like Steve Rogers, but for the other side. Or should I say the wrong side? Either way, you think that this is just some dude that is as dedicated to the ideals of the Confederacy as much as Steve Rogers is dedicated to the ideals of America. That would sound like kind of a shit show, right? But what if I told you this series is actually kind of good? So for starters, I need to give context. There are two Captain Confederacies, one that ran in the 80s and one that ran in the 90s. The 90s one is the one that is published under Marvel's Epic Comics. That one is a reboot of the original, which is published under Steel Dragon Press Comics, which first of all, has opened up another rabbit hole for me to explore. But today we will be talking about the 80s run. Don't worry though, I'll get to the Marvel published one in the future. But first, you gotta know the context for the 80s one. So the original is set in an alternate reality, and it's about a man named Jeremy Gray, which, of course, he had to have the same name as me. Why did I have to catch a stray? Him, along with a white woman named Roxy Huxley, a black man named Aaron Jackson, and a black woman named Kate Williams were selected as a part of a government project titled Project Hero. And they basically all got dollar store versions of the Captain America Super Soldier Serum and filmed fake scenes where Jeremy, as Captain Confederacy, saves the day. And the white woman, Roxy Huxley, was always his sidekick, who went by the moniker of Miss Dixie. And his main nemesis is, you guessed it, the black man. His villain name was Black Snake. And the black woman apparently just acted like a bystander or a victim whenever they needed her to. But for some reason, they also gave her the serum, even though she's not one of the main heroes or villains. But it's all propaganda to keep the citizens in love with the Confederacy, and it keeps them believing that division is the only way to peace. Now, in this universe, it seems like the Confederacy got to keep most of its South states, but they don't have Texas, they don't have Louisiana, and they probably don't have Arkansas either. Anyways, the constant hand in this propaganda starts to test some of the main four's morals, and they actually have to question whether or not what they're doing is right, despite how much money they are getting paid to do this. And maybe some of them are making a plan to expose the truth. Now, before I get into specifics, I tell you some things. The first series is 12 issues long, so I'm going to break it into 3 parts. This video will cover issues 1 through 4. Second, I've only read issues 1 through 4 at this point, so I don't know what happens after that. And third, there's a lot of slurs in here. Like, there's some shit in here that I didn't even know existed. And using my math brain, I estimate that there's about 0.75 N words per comic page. So, you got the N, you got the I, the 2 G's, half of the E. You know what? Let me just stop. So I may not be able to show you whole pages from this series simply because there's so many slurs, but I'll find some panels to throw on the screen from time to time. And let's have some fun with this. Make your prediction right now. Which issue out of the 4 I'll cover today will have the highest N-word count? Put in your vote in the comment section right now. No cheating. I'll tell you which one at the end. Man, I hope I don't get banned. All right, new day, same shirt, don't ask. So unfortunately, the series is in black and white. It's symbolism for how you shouldn't see color. I'm just fucking with you. It's probably just because color was too expensive for this comic studio. Real talk though, I'd make up some shit like that for an English report back in high school though, because Lord knows I was scraping for details in every single essay I wrote. Issue 1 starts with the 4 characters, Jeremy, Aaron, Roxy, and Kate, watching some film of what is assumedly going to be the next propaganda shown to the people. Our boys Jeremy and Aaron have a little bit of a discussion while watching it where they both discuss how they feel about lying to the public. But in simple terms, they really just joke about it, which demonstrates their complacency in the lie. But Roxy interrupts them, telling Jeremy that she'd appreciate it if he and his Nigra friend kept quiet. I'm not sure if I can say that word online, but let's dance with the devil a little bit and see what YouTube says. So once the propaganda ends, the head of the CBI, which is just the Confederate FBI, Thomas McCulley, talks about how the next showcase to the people will show Jeremy and Roxy getting the serum shots as a rebuttal to the rumor going around that Captain Confederacy is really just some government lie. Now, Jeremy and Roxy were both actors before being brought onto this project, and Jeremy is having some doubts about it all, and he wants to go back to regular acting roles, and he tells this to McCulley, who we are now going to call Mac. So Jeremy wants to go back to regular acting roles, but Mac shuts it down due to the possible risk that Captain Confederacy being a hoax could get out. And Roxy joins in on this with the really manipulative statement of, "You've got all looks and no talent." Mac then praises Roxy for being a great model for Southern womanhood, which Aaron mocks, and Roxy gets a little bit lost in the sauce for a second. "Did you say something, boy?" I was way too, hold on, that was way too good of a take. I might have to cut that out. You'll figure out soon that though each of the four have differing ideologies, Roxy strays very far from the other three. And I really do believe that she's going to be a big problem for the good guys. Now we get our first actual N-word drop on the next page, but it comes from Kate, who, I don't know, snaps for some reason. Basically, Jeremy, Aaron, and Kate are riding around. We kind of see the way they think when it comes to Project Hero. Aaron doesn't care that much. He just really likes getting paid well. Kate, on the other hand, is pissed because she knows that this propaganda will do nothing but keep people ignorant, brainwashed, and racist. And Kate tells him that she's going to ditch the project. And while Aaron says that he's not going to help her because he likes his life now, Jeremy just genuinely thinks that the project is good because he believes that without it, race wars will ensue, which is the exact message that they're trying to push towards the ignorant people. But Jeremy believes if ignorance keeps peace, so be it. Then they get stopped by some bumpkins on their drive. "Looky here, fellas. That's a nice car. Thinks it belongs to the," let's just say,
friendly person.
"Got herself a big buck and a pretty high yeller for company. Guess you don't mind the smell." All right, I'm having way too much fun voice acting racists. So Aaron does what any regular person with super strength would do. He bends the dude's pitchfork in 4 different directions and then participates in classism. "I own this car, and you're a bunch of pathetic, ill-educated yokels who couldn't afford to put a down payment on my underwear if you triple mortgaged your farm and sold your grandmothers for dog food." You know, that's just real shit. Now we cut to later that night where Jeremy finishes having sexy time with Roxy, and boy oh boy does she make it clear that she loves those moments with him. So in classic pillow talk fashion, Jeremy lets it go that Kate is going to be leaving Project Hero, and Roxy leaves the room to snitch on her because she's just the worst. Then we cut to Aaron, who's going to see Kate, but it quickly gets interrupted when he sees her apartment get lit up with bullets. So Aaron now thinks that Kate is dead, but early next morning, she shows up at his door, bruised and battered. Turns out, being a super soldier helps you survive bullets. Now, Kate only stays there for a quick second because she tells him that she's about to go find the underground. And she asks Aaron to join, but he chickens out. This scene opens Aaron's eyes to the harm that he's been so complacent in taking part of. The fact that the CBI are willing to do anything to keep this secret. So he does what any normal person would do in this situation. He takes a news lady hostage in his Black Snake costume and demands to talk on live TV. He wants to expose the truth of Project Hero to everyone now. So Captain Confederacy and Miss Dixie show up, and Jeremy is just trying to convince Aaron to chill out. He doesn't want his friend to get shot over this. Roxy, she does not give a fuck. So a fight breaks out, and in the middle of Aaron trying to say something to Jeremy, Roxy shoots him in the spine, which is noted as being one of the weak points for the super soldiers. So the shot is fatal. And with that, Jeremy's mind starts to break. His friend was just murdered over just trying to do the right thing. So he makes it clear that he no longer wants to be Captain Confederacy. So that was issue 1, and there's still tons of world building to do. And we got to see what Jeremy does next. So let's continue. Issue 2 picks up with Jeremy watching a news report on the events that led to Aaron's shooting. And of course, the news report is framed as just another one of Captain Confederacy's feats. And Mac pops in to check on him. You know, he's checking in to make sure that Jeremy's not going to try and quit or anything. But after they finish their talk, Mac still sends people to tail him as he walks off, which leads to Jeremy luring them into an alleyway, attacking them, and stripping them of their clothes. I didn't know he swung that way, but you know, you do you. In reality, he explains later that he did that just to scare them off without trying to kill anyone. But then when Jeremy leaves, the agents are still in the alleyway trying to figure out how the hell they're going to go home without, you know, looking like freaks out in the streets. And a woman, who we'll talk about more later, walks up and shoots both of them. So then we cut to Mac at a counseling session with one Dr. Kitsune Lee, who starts picking his brain about Project Hero. Mac explains the origin of Project Hero and how the original serum is probably why the Confederacy won the war. Mac explains how after the first time they released footage of Captain Confederacy, the demographic of those who played the villains, their public image was immediately changed, and that signaled that they were onto something. And this scene ends with Mac talking about how Jeremy might actually be his biological son, because apparently Jeremy's mom liked to sleep around with people who she thought was going to make it big. Now, right now, I think this is a random and unnecessary thing, but if it hits how I think it'll hit, I think this could actually be a pretty clever part of the story. That being that if Mac reveals to him that he is his father and Jeremy still decides to, I guess, go against the Confederacy and reveal the truth, it could make that decision a lot more impactful for Jeremy as a character. So we're back with Jeremy, and he goes to see Roxy, and he asks her, "Why did you kill Aaron?" Roxy speaks in a very objective tone, saying that it needed to be done to save Project Hero. So seeing that Roxy is not on the same thinking pattern as him, he tells her that he's quitting, and he leaves. By the way, what's wrong with these folks telling people that they're quitting? Like, especially after what happened to Kate, I wouldn't tell anyone that I'm leaving. I just go. I'm not trying to get shot up. And as we see a few pages later, Roxy snitches because she sucks. In reality, she's the niece of the president of the Confederacy, so it makes sense that she's on their side. So we cut back to Jeremy, and the shooter has now caught up to him as he's walking back to his apartment. Turns out to be Susan Sawyer, another member of the CBI, and also the woman that Aaron actually took hostage back when he got shot. Apparently, she also works for the British Secret Service. Now, this issue jumps around a lot, which is why I'm giving it to you like this, but this issue ends with Mac leaving Dr. Lee's office after getting that call from Roxy. And after Mac leaves, Dr. Lee goes into her closet and pulls out a stealth suit and puts it on. It turns out that Dr. Lee is also a vigilante by the name of the White Ninja. No Tommy Oliver. Yo, it's a new day. Let's not talk about it. I'm a busy guy. So that was the end of issue 2 with the reveal of the White Ninja lurking in the shadows. And now we move on to issue 3, which is definitely the most action-packed of the 4 that we'll talk about today. So issue 3 picks up with Sawyer and Jeremy. She forces him at gunpoint to walk with her. Apparently, there's a specific meeting point that Sawyer is supposed to bring Jeremy to, and Dr. Lee, or the White Ninja, is supposed to meet them there as well. In a whole-ass helicopter, might I add. Where did she get it? I have no clue, but Why would a ninja need a helicopter? Why would they even have one? It literally goes against the whole philosophy of being a ninja. So on the walk there, Sawyer gets Jeremy to admit that the Confederacy is pretty bad and what the CBI is doing isn't for the betterment of the people. Then she tries to convince him to join in the resistance, to change the country and take down the CBI. Because apparently she's double crossing both the CBI and the British Secret Services, and she's actually a part of a resistance group looking to lead a revolution of some sort. But Jeremy says, I'm just an actor with super strength, but whatever. Sawyer finally convinces Jeremy to join when she says that Kate, who Jeremy still thinks is dead at this point, is alive. If I didn't tell you earlier, when Kate was in Aaron's apartment, she talked about how she had a contact with a rebellion, and that's where she was going next. Turns out Sawyer was that contact. And also, I haven't told you the name of this rebellion, but it's called the Railroad, and all the missions they do are in secrecy. You know, you could even say that these missions are underground. I'm not even making a joke. They've actually flip-flopped between the underground and the railroad throughout this story. But we also learned during this dialogue that the only reason that Kate survived her shooting was because Sawyer showed up and used her CBI credentials to tell the shooters that Kate was already dead. But as these revelations are flowing, Mac and his crew show up and a shootout begins. See, one thing that I don't like about Jeremy is the fact that he still has feelings towards Roxy and Mac, despite the fact that they are complacent in propaganda that has not only harmed the people of the Confederacy, but also his own friends, Aaron and Kate. And throughout this fight, he keeps on telling Sawyer to stop shooting at Mac. And at first, I thought, yeah, this guy's just weird. He still has feelings for Mac or something. But then I realized maybe he just doesn't want to die. I mean, he doesn't have a shield or a gun, and he's not really a trained fighter. He's just an actor. He's really just a dead weight out there in the firefight. Damn. This guy sucks. But Sawyer gives us the best panel in the comic yet when she yells, "Rotten hell, you racist bastard," while shooting through a car windshield and nearly missing Mac's temple. Jeremy takes the gun out of Sawyer's hands and asks Mac to give him a few minutes to talk things over with Sawyer. Mac gives him 3 minutes. But bro can't even get a word out before the white ninja shows up and drops grenades. Fucking grenades down at the CBI cars. This shit is wacky as hell. Why does a ninja have grenades? So somehow no one dies in the explosion, and a couple cop cars pull up to check out what just happened. The white ninja is about to kill the cops when Jeremy, who all of a sudden is a hero that's against killing, tells her to stop. Now, to his credit, he probably just didn't want anyone to die, and he does a really good job of getting them out of that situation without killing. So Mac and his people also survive the explosions because I guess grenades only damage inanimate objects. So Jeremy tells the cops that the CBI people are Yankees, aka people that the Confederates don't really fuck with. And to convince the cops, he not only puts the Captain Confederacy mask on, but he also lifts a conveniently non-destroyed car in the area. And the cops fold like fresh laundry. So the cops arrest the CBI folk, and Jeremy leaves with the white ninja and Sawyer, officially joining the rebellion. And that is where issue 3 ends off. So after the action-packed issue 3, we slow it down for this last issue as we learn what the rebels are trying to do to expose the CBI and its lies. But first, let's see what Mac's response to everything that just went down was. So it turns out that as soon as Mac went down to the precinct, he made a phone call and got released immediately. Obviously. But as he walks out, he has to let out a few N-words, and a reporter by the name of Jeff Lewis starts questioning him about what just happened. Turns out that Jeff Lewis has been a huge reporter in investigating the CBI and calling Project Hero a hoax. So he's bad news for Mac. And apparently Jeff Lewis was also told by one of the officers that arrested Mac that Captain Confederacy called him a Yankee spy. So someone who has made a name trying to expose the lie that is Project Hero has now heard about the inner turmoil within the project. And now he's trying to get a story from Mac. The question is, what is Mac gonna tell him? But before that, We gotta talk about some other things that happened in this comic. First of all, a CBI agent and a German doctor named Dr. Vishosk discuss getting information out of a figure placed slightly off screen who apparently is in a suggestible state right now. And they want to use him to figure out where the rebels' safe houses are. Now, I don't know who this is or if it's even someone that we've seen yet, but if it is someone that we've seen yet, it's gotta be Aaron. That's just my guess. I'm putting it out there. Anyways, in the meantime, we learned that the White Ninja and Sawyer tranked Jeremy as they drove to the safe house, so he wouldn't know the location. At the safe house, we see Kate again and some dude I'll call Mr. X because his name is way too hard to pronounce. Plus, he's being called that by the CBI because, well, he is a known problem to them. We also learned that Dr. Lee was a part of a similar project as Project Hero in Japan, except she wasn't publicized like Captain Confederacy. She was more of a rumor floating around in enemy camps. But she doesn't have any powers. She's just a trained assassin with a cool ass stealth suit. Like, look at this panel. This shot alone makes me want to read an entire White Ninja series. Like, come on, man. Come on. It's also interesting to note that apparently countries in this world are trying to make heroes as propaganda instead of as weapons of war. Germany has the Iron Raven. Japan has the Solar Samurai. Honestly, it makes me wonder whether or not the world leaders have better relationships than the ones in our real life because they aren't trying to kill each other, or at least it hasn't been mentioned yet. But anyways, moving on, Kate and Jeremy have a one-on-one conversation, which is a little odd at first because they start talking about blonde Jesus Christ for some reason. And then, Kate calls them both super soldier serum addicts. I don't know. But during this weird acid trip, we learn that the serum that these guys take only lasts a few weeks, and they do need boosters to keep their strength and speed. And both Kate and Jeremy only have a few days. Because of this, Kate wants to do something now before they turn back into just regular people. So the plan is that the next time that the president has a live broadcast at the Capitol, they break in and Jeremy takes the mic and speaks to the people as Captain Confederacy. Now, Jeremy is hesitant at first. I think he's still under the mindset that he's just an actor and he can't really be the face of a movement. But in the end, he decides he'll do it for Aaron. But just as his plan is set in motion, we figure out what Mac ended up telling the reporter to get him off of his back. The new narrative is that Captain Confederacy has been brainwashed, and his actions right now are not of his own volition. How will this affect the plan? How will our heroes adapt to overcome and improvise? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. This series is just as interesting as I thought it would be. It reminds me of V for Vendetta, but with Pulp Fiction dialogue. You know what? Let me not disrespect V for Vendetta or Pulp Fiction. It's under the same guise as V for Vendetta, as in it's in a dystopian world. And I compare it to Pulp Fiction because of its crudeness and vulgarity, but I'm gonna be real, the dialogue's not anywhere near as good as Pulp Fiction, but it's got the N-words, but I'm enjoying the read. It seems to have been written by someone who at least has a passion for writing, and I'd be lying if I said that the art style was necessarily my taste, but bad art has never strayed me away from a comic that I found really interesting. And this one, to say the least, there's clear passion put into it. So let's just hope that there's not some crazy 180 turn narratively in the story. Oh shit. Yeah. N-word count. Let's look and see who won. Which issue? Let's look and see which issue won. All right. If you guessed issue 1, you were correct. Congratulations. I don't know what you'd win from this, but good job. I guess they just wanted to start the series off with a bang. I guess they got to let you know what you're going to get into. So, all jokes aside, hit that like button if you like what you saw here. Sub to the channel for more videos on Captain Confederacy and others just like it. And as always, thanks for watching.